Let's get started with everyone's favorite drunkard and alleged rapist, Pete Hegseth, a Fox News anchor who is slated to become the next Secretary of Defense. Since the change of the Department of War into the Department of Defense, there has never been a Secretary of Defense that leads the second largest governing body on the planet, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. There has never been a person who has not been tasked with like managing more than 3 million people, that has, adequate managerial background, or at least like super high levels of military experience. This is about to be the first time in American history where we have someone who is truly unqualified for the position. For all the talks that Republicans have about DEI hires, it seems like this is also a DEI hire. The difference, on the other hand, for the Republicans is that their DEI is if you're a bad guy who has been alleged of doing sexual assaults and is known as a drunkard, then that's the type of DEI we like, you know? From DEI hire to DUI hire, the Department of Defense is going places. Think about the American military and the sexual assault problem that they have internally, and also the sexual assault problems that they have on foreign military bases. Great guy to have in that regard. Anyway, that's just one of the most minor aspects of this. Let's take a look at the larger story now.
First Senate confirmation hearing for the president-elect's cabinet nominees is underway this morning. The man in the hot seat is Pete Hegseth, Trump's choice to be defense secretary. Scott.
This is one of the things, of course, that he wants to just completely stop is women in combat positions, which, of course, if you don't understand like what the military's major problems are, you're like, whoa, why are women in combat positions? It's like they don't lower the testing standards for women to be in combat positions. That just means you got a bunch of ladies who are capable of carrying 100 pounds of gear around. There's significantly less of them in comparison to the men in those combat positions, but that still means that they, pass the standards. So just cutting them out of combat positions is just cooking the military for no reason at a time when the American military has a significant problem getting new recruits.
McFarland is on Capitol Hill with the latest. Scott, good morning. What can you tell us?
There is no doubt this will be a long day of questioning. Pete Hegseth will be grilled about allegations of
Army eases fitness test standards for women and older troops. Yeah, this was, once again, done because of a recruitment crisis. But in terms of combat positions, they still have to do the jobs. The change, however, will only affect the regular fitness test soldiers take annually. Qualifying for certain Army jobs, particularly more demanding combat positions or specialties such as Ranger School, will continue to require that everyone, regardless of age and gender, must pass the same fitness standards. Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. Did Chatter just come in here and hit me with the headline of a news story without reading the whole news story? My bad, dog. Yeah, you got real excited to be like, Hasan, I'm here to cook you. I know, if you can read the headline, you can read 2 paragraphs down from the headline, man. And also, make no mistake, if the Army does actually lower its physical fitness standards to let in more women or let in older people or whatever, they're doing that because they have a hard time recruiting. They're not doing that because they want to be woke. The military is not a woke institution. Please, how have we arrived at such a permanently identity politics focused brain rot in this country that people look at the American military and go, that's an institution that is woke right now? What do you think the major role and responsibility of the American military is? It's called American Empire. That's what they do. There is no wokeness in this process.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you,
Senator Kaine.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago.
Ultimately, the hearing is inconsequential to his appointment. Yes. I mean, there was a point in time when these sorts of hearings could make or break a person and cook an appointment. But nowadays, it's just, I mean, come on, we live in a post-Trump universe. And even before, even in a pre-Trump universe, it has, these sorts of meetings have been relatively inconsequential. Clarence Thomas comes to mind. I would say it's more consequential for Democrats who will abide by norms and standards. It's just historically less consequential for Republicans who don't really care. Anyway, let's continue with the Pete Hegseth talks.
2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct?
I believe so.
You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she's a child of God. Oh, and Tim Kaine in the membrane, Tim Kaine in the brain. Yeah, put that in your brain, Tim Kaine.
She was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false.
By the way, let's just say Pete Hegseth is a repeater of this offense. It's so funny because, like, as you guys know, I'm not exactly a firm and committed believer in any religion whatsoever. Okay, make no mistake. Although I was culturally raised Muslim, grew up in a Muslim country, I have some of those cultural remnants. I am Muslim. I will say this: if God is real and Christianity is correct, virtually every single outspoken Christian is going to hell permanently. So at moments like this, I always think to myself, I cannot wait. I hope it's real. By my assessment, I have done very little to offend God by the rules of any of the three Abrahamic religions, with the exception of eating pork and drinking alcohol from time to time. But those are minor offenses in my opinion. I think that, you know, this sort of stuff, hurting people consistently, seems like that's a much larger issue. I'm just saying, you're going to hell, dog. You don't believe in any of the things that you espouse. You just don't believe in it. You must not. It makes no sense.
False charges. Well, it was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this amazing woman behind me.
You've admitted that you...
I think attacking him for his infidelity is not going to change anyone's mind. They should focus on his incompetence. I think that this is a full-throated, multiple-angle attack, and that's why they're talking about his infidelity, because it pisses him off, and it puts him on the back. It puts him on the back foot. And also, for the record, for a lot of people, that kind of stuff is what matters. In this day and age, it really doesn't. I guess it is pretty funny that you're talking to a military man about infidelity, by the way, because I feel like you can't fully be a part of the American military if either your wife at home has not cheated on you, or if you haven't cheated on her when you're overseas. Infidelity is the name of the game here. What is this? Maximum penalty for extramarital sexual conduct. A conviction. Here's a normal argument you could make under normal circumstances, even though we don't live in a normal world, and I will tell you why. So infidelity is technically a risk, just like alcoholism is a risk. It's a matter of national security because it opens you up to blackmail. Technically, although it's laughable to assume that anyone will actually be penalized for infidelity and adultery or whatever, gambling is considered a security risk. Alcoholism and other vices such as that are considered security risks for numerous different reasons. Someone could just like give you alcohol, have you spill stuff, you know, state secrets or whatnot. Large amounts of debt is considered a security risk. I know this because I have immediate family members who have classified security status. So having said that, does the military actively prosecute adultery? The military doesn't even prosecute within its ranks. What the hell are you talking about? Come on, be for freaking real. So that's number one. Number two, and this is perhaps the interesting question here, is it a blackmail opportunity if we live in the Trump world, where one can be as shameless as they want to be and suffer zero repercussions for it? Because blackmail only works if you have the capacity to feel shame. Clearly, blackmail won't work on the likes of Pete Hegseth because all of his issues are laid bare as he sits there and openly takes it. This is one of the interesting dynamics, in my opinion, of the Trump world.
So you
talking about a hypothetical.
So you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge
but you
acknowledge that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman by whom you had just fathered a child. You have admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to be.
But no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
Oh, God, dude, shut up. What is this Jesus Christ nonsense? I hate people who very clearly use this like aesthetics focused, hyper religious attitude as a shield when virtually no one cares. Who is this for is what I think. Every time I see someone behave like this, I'm like, no, dude, this doesn't work. Like, who is this for? Like, you're a bad dude. You've cheated on your wife. You've cheated on wives, multiple wives, over and over again. That's like kind of your thing. You've sexually assaulted women. You're going to hell, dog. You are literally going to hell. I don't want to come across like a annoying Reddit atheist here, but it's just like so frustrating when I hear stuff like this from people who have just like done awful things. Just say you've atoned. Just say that you've done horrible things and then show your work on why you are no longer that, like, those things don't represent who you are as a human being. But no, he's got to be like, nah, God has actually forgiven me for my sins. Oh, do you know that? Do you know that God forgives you for your sins? Do you have any, like, did he tell you? Who told you that? Did God tell you that? I don't know. It just comes across as like very self-aggrandizing. It's like, yeah, I got a direct line to God. Yeah, me and him, we're on speaking terms, dude. He's like, when I was cheating on my third wife, God was like, keep going, Pete. God was watching my stroke game. Anyway, that's how Christianity works. I mean, that's how a lot of people just like use and abuse religion. Yeah, here, I'm going to own Pete Hegseth. I talked to God, okay? I talked to God. He said, you're bad and you shouldn't be the Secretary of Defense. What now, Pete? What now, dog? What now, big dog? Yeah, that's right. Owned. God, I'm turning into such a Reddit atheist when I just like the Christian dominionist attitude is really gross to me because it's like it is the American version of ISIS basically, and we don't have the same capacity to understand when it's like when it's basically a Christian operating on that same mentality, because there is a formality, a structure, a process. It's more systematized when like the American government is dishing out this kind of violence. This is akin to having an ISIS person lead the most powerful military on the planet. His Christianity is not Christianity in the way that you understand it, in the way that you see it in your daily lives, in the way that you know your immediate family members who are like kind individuals who just, you know, happen to be Christian. His Christianity is a violent one. It is a violent, false interpretation of Christianity, and that genuinely is frustrating to see. I mean, he literally has he has a Crusaders tattoo. It's a militant form of Christianity. He's very open about it. It's not something that he hides at all. It's actually part of the reason why I think Donald Trump wants him to be the Department of Defense lead here. It's very frustrating. Yeah, he's got the Jerusalem cross. He's got the Crusader tattoo. Like, he is very much so a Christian nationalist. And normally I would say it's a LARP. For many people it is. But for Pete Hegseth, like, he's going to be in charge of the largest, most powerful military force on the planet. As a religious extremist, the invocation of God in this circumstance as a deflection, as a shield, as a defense mechanism to be like, oh, I'm a godly man and God has forgiven me for my adultery, it just rings hollow because I know what you think God is telling you.
One of your colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted, kill all Muslims. Another colleague, not anonymous, we have this, said that you took co-workers to a strip club. You were drunk, you tried to dance with strippers, you had to be held off the stage, and one of your employees in that event.
I love that he gets like country girl drunk. You know what I mean? Like, that's so funny. He's so obviously not the right guy for this task. Okay. Not the right guy for this job whatsoever. And he will just get like white girl wasted. I think Felix had a really funny bit about it where, you know, he's the type of dude who just gets absolutely wasted and is a problem around his friends' daughters, like high school students, trying to get him trying to play like insane clown posse at the barbecue. just hammered at like 12:30.
We have seen multiple names of colleagues consistently throughout your career that have talked about your abusive.
Yeah, one of those people was his mom. Your mom, dog. Your mom was like, you're a bad person. You need to stop being a plague on women. I have failed you. I have failed this nation. That's crazy. Like that is like, that's the one person that you don't expect to come out against you like that. It's from this Politico magazine article, by the way, that scoured through Pete Hegseth's writings. Here it is. In his 2016 memoir, In the Arena, Hegseth says he relates to an online image of a triumphant ISIS fighter, a Quran in one hand and an AK-47 in the other. With God on his side and the wind at his back, he is a conquering warrior, Hegseth writes. He is fighting for something greater than himself. He's fighting for his God. In this photo, Hegseth sees a warped version of himself. I recognize that fighter, even though I've never met him. I'm drawn to him because I relate to him, he writes. I deplore what he stands for, what he does, and how he does it. He's a soldier of hate, subjugation, and sheer evil, but I understand his passions. There is fundamentally very little difference, very little daylight between Pete Hegseth and an ISIS fighter. Warren reads multiple statements of Hegseth and women in combat.
So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
I like that he clarified it so many times. He's like, no, make no mistake. I do not think women should serve in the military. And we talked about this with you know, the trans ban in the military as well. There are many roles. The Defense Department is a hiring body. It's a government jobs program. It is the largest government jobs program. It's the second largest hiring body in the nation after Walmart. So when you make decisions like this across the board, when you're just like, yeah, we're just not going to have any black people in the military anymore, or we're just not going to have any women in the military anymore, or we're just not going to have any trans people in the military anymore. That's like, you have now eradicated tens of thousands of jobs, sometimes hundreds of thousands of jobs, in a way that is also unconstitutional, in a way that is also not allowed. Now, am I a firm and committed believer in, you know, making more female, gay, non-binary, or trans drone operators or whatever and make them do the war crimes? No, I don't care. But I also understand the current situation that we exist under. I don't like the military's output, but I do understand that it's still the second largest hiring body in the nation.
Women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period. Or your words.
It's so awesome. He's like, no, I don't even care if they can outlive me. I still don't want them. Make no mistake. Being a woman is disqualifying. I would like to discriminate based on gender in the second largest hiring body in the United States of America. If this somehow gets brought up in a congressional hearing later down the line in the future, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows? I want the world to know I do not think women should be in the military. They should be in the kitchen instead. Like, that's crazy. It's like a meme almost. All right, this is going viral.
To that, you could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mentioned it up. mention it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia and trying to work.
That's crazy that he named the only countries in that region that are not a part of the ASEAN alignment. He circled around. He went there. He went to the region, okay, through name recognition, and basically chose the only countries that are not a part of this specific alignment. That's amazing.
On submarines with them.
Mr. Hegseth, none of those countries are in ASEAN.
Across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare.
No, he literally chose the only countries that are not in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. That's awesome. He's like, you know, there's countries. What, Senator, you mean Asian? Okay, Australia. It's close enough. He doesn't have a PhD in foreign policy. He's just that good. For all of his faults and failures, I feel like Joe Biden would know the nations. You know what I mean? ASEAN, you mean island China, anti-China Chinese. China that we bombed quite a bit next to the anti-China Chinese. It's like, you know, China light. Different kinds of Chinese. So are Dems just running him through the mud for performance and optics, safe, and they'll fall in line and play ball? I think there are ways in which he can forcibly pass through. So it's more so about whipping up the ranks within the Republican Party. It's going to come down to like a couple of Republicans that might hold out. But all of this is a humiliation ritual at the end of the day. Trump has already said that he would get Hegseth confirmed regardless. Yeah, this is actually a funny point. Is this Hegseth not aware he isn't qualified? He doesn't have imposter syndrome at all? Is crazy. Yeah. He's talking about women not being qualified to be a part of the military, while he is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense.
As you said in your statement, do you agree anybody should be able to serve in the military if they meet the standards?
Senator, as the president has stated, I don't disagree with the overturn of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Great, because I don't want you thinking, can't serve if you're a mom, can't serve if you're LGBTQ, and then last, can't serve if you're a leftist. The statements you said about people who have views differently than you, that we're the enemy, are you saying the 50%?
He's heard Felix Biederman's famous theory about having a military coup, utilizing the revolutionary sentiment and the only organized body in the American government that is still somewhat competent to be able to bring about a socialist republic.
Of the DOD, if they hold liberal views or leftist views, or our Democrats are not welcome in the military, are you saying that?
Senator, I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan under Democrat President Barack Obama. I also volunteered to guard the inauguration of Joe Biden, but was denied the opportunity to serve because.
Yeah, this is like a big part of his anger and resentment, because he had a Jerusalem cross tattoo and a Deist Vault tattoo. They were like, you're a bit of an extremist, Pete. Also because of all the times where you were written up for saying you want to massacre Muslims, or I don't know, the fact that you think women are ineligible for combat positions and should not be in the military. Like, these are extremist positions.
Because I was identified as an extremist by my own unit for a Christian tattoo.
Watch. Hegseth says he supports Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas. I'm glad that Senator Tom Cotton and Pete Hegseth could get together and talk about the important issues, you know, killing more Palestinian children.
We've got a big audience here. Many of them seem to be patriotic supporters of you, Mr. Hegseth. Some of them seem to be liberal critics of you. I would note that it's only the liberal critics that have disrupted this hearing. As was my custom during the Biden administration, I want to give you a chance to respond to what they said about you. I think the first one accused you of being a Christian Zionist. I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that the Jewish people deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history.
Like, imagine being a dude in Arkansas and hearing your senator be like, I'm a Christian Zionist. Aren't you a Christian Zionist? Jews have a holy land they belong to. They must have that holy land. It's the most important position of all time. A random dude in Arkansas that already has anti-Semitic opinions, like, oh yeah, them Jews do, own a lot of stuff, huh? Isn't that weird? Like, when you hear your senator say stuff like this, I mean, that's just like you're supercharging anti-Semitism. Unless you're already an evangelical that is going to a megachurch where you're constantly talking about how the Holy Land belongs to Jews. But it's crazy.
Consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is a great ally.
Thank you. Because another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group.
I thought they were a socialist USSR cutout. What? Now they're a Chinese Communist front group.
These days, said that you support
Israel.
Israel.
These days. Never mind. They've changed it.
Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
Yes, Code Pink is a bunch of old Jewish ladies. It is, they're like old school OG anti-war protesters. Tom Cotton and Nancy Pelosi doing the handshake emoji on hating Code Pink. I mean, yes, you need to understand something. That's why I always say American foreign policy is bipartisan, okay, with very, very few exceptions.
Last year at a hearing before this committee, I called on the Biden Secretary of the Navy to resign because he's failing in his ability to build ships. We are being completely outbuilt in terms of ships by the Chinese, and yet this Secretary of the Navy has been focused.
This is so funny to say, because, like, how many aircraft carriers do the Chinese have versus how many we have, and what the operational capacity and what the logistics that the American military has. Not the glaze, but we have far outspent every other nation for far too long. It is virtually impossible for our foreign adversaries to even come close. People don't understand the full scope of American empire. They don't understand that a major part of this process, being everywhere all at once, requires a massively complex logistical chain. You need constant refueling. You need constant resupply. You need Amazon deliveries that are getting shipped to the aircraft carriers in real time. Not only do we have more ships, but we have an incredibly complex web of logistics. We have a supply chain. We have a global supply chain that feeds these aircraft carriers and our military bases all around the planet. And we also have an incredibly complex web of constant spying, like constant surveillance, that works effectively with all of our aircraft as well. These are things that no other foreign nation, adversary or not, will ever be able to achieve. I don't understand why these people are so invested in saying that the American military is woke that they're just like, once again, undermining the truth. China can't even achieve it. No, I think it's a matter of priority. I think, China doesn't choose to spend its money on supercharging their military, on hyper-focusing on their military might. They have defensive positions overall, and they want to have regional dominance. But having said that, they would rather build sick infrastructure projects like the new dam that they want to build. It's like significantly larger than the Three Gorges Dam. It's stuff like that. China has more ships than us already. We still have more tonnage, but that's eroding too. Okay, but I'm talking about something more than simply ships. China has now more surface ships than the U.S. China is building at a rate of 6 destroyers a year compared to U.S.'s 2 destroyers a year. Guys, and I think Elint News will agree with me on this. The Navy doesn't simply operate on the pure number of ships. It's infinitely more complex than that. You also have to have a steady supply chain that is refueling and refeeding munitions into your Navy, no matter where you are in the world. America's military capabilities are, I think, so far more advanced than the Chinese military. It's not even, and I say this as a China glazer, America currently has a capability to be anywhere around the world and deploy anywhere around the world like an insane number of troops. China does not have that. America has 800 military bases that we know of. China has 800 foreign military bases that we know of. This does not include the secret bases that we do not know of. The logistics is important, and the U.S. has the monopoly on allied ports and refueling for sure, although China is building a large logistics fleet. But you are correct, the U.S. is far ahead right now in terms of deployment capability. Exactly.
Mr. Hegseth, if your Secretary of the Navy ends up focusing on climate change more than shipbuilding and lethality, will you commit to me to fire him?
My Secretary of the Navy, should I be confirmed, sir, will not be focused on climate change in the Navy. Just like the Secretary of the Air Force won't be focused on LG-powered fighter jets, or the Secretary of the Army will not be focused on electric-powered tanks.
Let me ask,
We're going to be focused on lethality and defeating our enemy.
I do find it really funny that these guys think that like the initiatives being made like this, I don't even know how much emphasis there is on this, but like the initiatives in this regard are being done not to improve operational capacity, but instead because of woke. Like you have to be a complete moron. I mean, look, I've listened to Mark Milley complain about how America's procurement strategies are actually kind of outdated in comparison to what Palmer Luckey could do, you know, and how tech should play a more formative role in defense. It's legitimately terrifying to hear guys like this talk about accelerating American R&D in the field of battle. And there are definitely a lot of pre-existing checks that I guess slow down this process. Having said that, however, any sort of initiative made is 100% to improve combat readiness, and not because they want to be woke.
The other thing President Biden did, his first executive order as president, was to focus on transgender surgeries for active duty troops. This is all I'm describing the woke military here under Biden over the last 4 years. If confirmed and you issue an order saying we are going to rip the Biden woke yoke off the neck of our military and focus on lethality and warfighting, how do you think the troops will react?
Senator, I know the troops will rejoice.
They will love it.
They will love it. And we've already seen it in recruiting numbers. There's already been a surge since President Trump won the election of recruiting. The Army says
do you think our military will
surpass its
and our military
goals.
will follow that order?
Our military.
Yeah, that's what was stopping people from joining the military. How woke it is. Bro, they're going to start drafting people. I swear to God. Oh my God.
Military will follow that order, Senator. Gladly, because they want to focus on lethality and warfighting and get all the woke, political prerogative, politically correct, social justice, political stuff out of the military.
I'll just say this much, okay? I'll say this.
Same time.
A lot of you have called me old for being 33 years old. Many of you youngins are going to be feeling the pain when that draft kicks in. Maybe age will be a virtue in the upcoming years when we go to battle with China, okay? Think about that.